All right, today we're going to examine a very particular kind of exhaustion that realizes itself in modern life. And it's the kind of exhaustion that it doesn't hit you all at once. It doesn't hit you one day where you just think, I'm so tired today. I can fix this with a simple rest day. This is the kind that announces itself with a crisis, but accumulates with friction very quietly over time. So this is not failure, but saturation with overload. This is a phenomenon increasingly described as life admin fatigue. So, what is that? And I think by saying it, you probably already know whether or not this is a phenomenon in your life. Life admin refers to the ceaseless background labor of adult life, managing appointments and replying to emails, coordinating schedules, planning the logistics of staying alive and maintaining the infrastructure of your well-being, handling paperwork, navigating bureaucracy, the thousands of invisible tasks that scaffold basic participation in modern systems, that maintain the line between you and being homeless. The fatigue it generates really is not easily categorized. It's not dramatic. It doesn't spike. It doesn't collapse. It just saturates. It's consistent. It's constant. It seeps through the margins of cognitive bandwidth. And over time, it dissolves clarity, not through intensity, but through constancy. So let's dig into this concept. How can we wrap our minds around it to better metabolize the requirements that life admin puts on us and to potentially mitigate the effects of what we're calling today life admin fatigue? So, sociologist Hartmut Rosa, in her work Social Acceleration 2013, characterizes late modernity, which is a philosophical era of time that we're kind of in and kind of after. She defines it as, she says that late modernity is really defined not only by the increased speed of information and capital, but by the rising tempo or cadence of coordination demand. So what's accelerating isn't just action, it's meta action, updating, syncing, tracking, anticipating. And the paradox is this: as systems automate, the coordination layer grows. So optimized workflows don't replace attention, they multiply the surfaces of attention. The user becomes the integrator of the systems, responsible for managing the interactions between technologies that were meant to unburden them. The result is fragmentation. Systems scale. The self, however, splinters across interfaces. The self does not scale. It can participate in scale, but the self itself does not scale. So why is the weight of this why is it psychological? So sociologist Eva Illouz, in her book called Intimacies, 2007, she describes how emotional life in contemporary capitalism is shaped by rational structures. So you have a problem, you go to therapy. So then your problem space is shaped by therapy models. You have app-mediated dating, where your romantic life is now modeled by the algorithmic structure of the app. You have digital communication, where the cadence of your relationship with other people is determined by the niceties and the niceties and etiquette of digital communication. Even intimacy becomes administratable, basically, right? And the psychological strain of this, the stress of this, emerges when emotional presence is subsumed into logistical execution. And everything in life, meaningful or not, gets flattened into the same layer of the administratable. The the dominant subjectivity becomes that of the administrator, the self that arranges and anticipates and adjusts and visualizes and digitizes. That becomes the primary frame for selfhood. And eventually, the project manager persona ceases to be a mode. It becomes the mask. Emotional interiority fades beneath the constant demand to interface with life as a scheduling problem, fundamentally and primarily. Which brings us into this place where bureaucracy really becomes the core frame of our identity formation. There's an anthropologist, David Graeber, in a great book, 2015, The Utopia of Rules, where he observes that bureaucracies, they do more than structure tasks, they structure selves. Participation in complex systems is never neutral, and the behavior that these complex systems require reshapes our cognition and our attention and even our moral reflexes. The individual that is habituated to constant micro-adjustment and policy reading and interface toggling and inbox vigilance begins to experience identity as throughput, which is the volume of stuff that we are pushing through our lives and ourselves at a certain rate. Not who I am, but how well I perform under load. Then initiative flattens into reactivity, and presence, real presence in life, is traded for process compliance. And this raises a deeper issue, which is that actually opting out is not an option. Competence in these systems creates a paradox of visibility. The more effectively one handles coordination, the less visible the labor becomes. Efficiency raises expectations. Delegation recedes. Downstream friction becomes personal responsibility. And the, as we've called it, administrative subject becomes both executor and system buffer, absorbing complexity, rerouting overload, and quietly reconfiguring their days into maintenance rather than authorship, taking on an unspoken role and really an unspoken and unacknowledged role in all of the coordination and orchestration and implementation of the systems and workflows and automations at every layer in their lives. And so even when you automate, even when you implement, even when you schedule, even when you do more, it feels like the only reward is that you've done more. And this isn't simply a matter of fatigue. It actually signals a deeper form of psychological saturation, a kind of personality deformation under persistent anticipatory demand. And again, there is a real reward, there is a real reward in being organized. There's a real reward in having your shit together. There's a real reward in crushing life admin, for sure. I would 10 times out of 10 rather be on top of stuff from a life admin perspective than not. I've been on both sides of that, for sure. And I've played the victim with that. And I've said, it's not fair, man. Like, this is not fair. This is not right. And you get in that frame of mind, and it is a weak victim frame of mind, and it does not prime you well. Where if you say, listen, I've got these 10 pieces of bullshit paperwork that I have to do, I'm going to crush them. And you just take that mindset and you get it done. It feels really good to have done those things once you've done them. The point I'm making now is that the constancy of the requirement to do this is emotionally and existentially exacting. So what exactly is being lost? Because what's eroding here is not our capacity. If anything, the capacity grows. What's eroding is interiority. A person who spends every waking hour mediating between calendar logic and social obligation and digital infrastructure becomes difficult to locate, the voice that once narrated intention is replaced by task orchestration. And the result of this administrative subject becoming the primitive frame for our identity design, the result of that is not a dramatic collapse. It is instead the muted disappearance of existential authenticity into the administrative subject. And the narcissist or the sociopath doesn't notice this. They don't need to. This is part of their game. Life admin is actually just part of the game. And there may be even something to say for trying to experience those things in that way. But life admin fatigue does not originate in disorganization or weakness or distraction, although all those things can exacerbate life admin fatigue. So if you are disorganized, or you lend yourself toward weakness or softness, or you do indulge in distraction, you are inclining yourself to exacerbate the exhaustive effects of life admin fatigue. But life admin fatigue reflects a structural misalignment at the core between systems built for coordination and humans built for continuity. This condition that is at once diffuse and acute sits at the intersection of interface design and capitalist rationality and the psychological effects of overdetermined identity performance. And no amount of time blocking can resolve what is essentially a question of self-authorship. Whether the self is allowed to be something more than a manager of its own logistics in the modern age.